wanted credit for playing some role in it, but like not too much. It was
I
kind of
think
walking a
with
line.
look at the end of the day, look at the U.S. embassy. Like the U.S. embassy in Mexico is giving mad praise to the Mexicans. I mean, they're like praising them. They're loving it, and we're seeing kind of the same aspect. Look, like I mean, it's kind of that vetted unit. I mean, it's not only the intelligence provided, yes, but it's much more than like that. Like again, these are if I'm assuming because just knowing being the fact that it was El Mencho, there's very small units in Mexico that would be trusted to conduct this type of operation. You're not
Mhm.
the irony is you're not sending in the National Guard to go after El Mencho because they're the most easily corruptible ones, right? They're the ones that you could easily corrupt. And you're not sending in the regular Mexican army because they can also be corrupted. Like there's bases in, let's say, Michoacan right now under the United Cartels, under Los Carteles de los Reyes. Those Mexican military bases protect the leadership of the United Cartel, specifically R5 and the Cartel de los Reyes, right? So you're not sending in you're sending in your tier one, top tier assets of the
Yeah.
Mexican Special Forces, right? Like their equivalent to SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force. They have it. One of them, for example, being those murciélagos, the bats, right? And even within that, they're very, very, very specific. Like, and what I think people need to understand is, like, it wasn't just a one off of intelligence. I mean, it's a constant, nonstop. And we have drones and assets overflying Mexico with the agreement of the Mexican government. The Mexican government has already come out and publicly acknowledged this, that there's U.S. drones overhead flying Mexican territory in coordination with the Mexican government. And that's kind of the relationship, right? So what we're seeing is, I think when we're saying like the intelligence report, I would agree with you. It's like, okay, guys, it was intel. It wasn't like SEAL Team 6. And to be honest, you don't need it. Like, why? Like if we're running into situations where the Mexicans are willing to do it, why would we put our own guys at
Yeah.
risk? Like just it doesn't make any sense. Like if they're doing the job and that's their country, and all we have to do is vet, train, equip, pay, and give them intel, then just do that. Right? There's not this necessity for it. And that's what I think the Mexicans are trying to prove politically to the United States. The question now becomes where are we after the midterms and where we are after, more importantly, the next presidential election? What happens, right? Because again, I just the main difference is the political pressure from the Trump administration. I tweeted about this. I mean, this is the ultimate win for the Trump administration from a cartel fight. This is what they were looking for. The question is, it doesn't matter the long term viability because I would agree if they manage to appoint a successor, they can manage the operations still kind of for the most part the same. But the win is a win, and this is a win. So that's what they were looking for, and we'll see kind of how that continues moving forward.
I mean, I like that you're looking at the midterms, the next presidential election, but man, I'm trying to get through the next few days, next few weeks here. So let's dial it back and we'll wrap on this. Two questions kind of together, and I think
Yeah.
they play together. First off, what does reestablishing deterrence look like if the cartels go that route, just in your estimation? But then in line with that, what do you expect to see or what are you watching for over the next few days, 2 weeks? We'll go that
Yeah.
range.
So the reestablishing, I think that the problem is like I think the cartels are probably doing this attacks to show like if you do this, this is what happens. I think at the end of the day, what the Mexican government is saying is, sorry guys, we got Uncle Sam. We don't.
Is it a dozen government officials and soldiers killed? Is it a
I don't know if
building
they're willing to
destroyed?
go that far. And I think the risk that the cartels have is, and again, I just speculated from the deterrence,
Yeah.
like why are they still doing these attacks outside of just like, oh, we're angry, we want revenge. I mean, there has to be at least some motive, right? One of them was rallying the flag, the other one's deterrence. Could be a combination of everything. I think but the problem that the Mexican that CGNG might have is like if you make this long term, the problem is you might start creating the political movement that has been very lacking inside of Mexico to demand change, and then now you made
Okay.
Jalisco New Generation Cartel Public Enemy number one with the political pressure to go after them because the violence has continued. Right, Guadalajara is hosting the World Cup. It's one of the towns and cities hosting the World Cup in 2026. Can you imagine if the World Cup Federation says we're pulling out of Mexico for the World Cup because it's not safe? That's it. Like
Which
that's
isn't
that
it's not the craziest thing right now.
right. But if you're looking from a political motivation and factor to just say we're done with the cartel, that is one I can see. So the Jalisco New Generation cartels have to be very, very careful with this. And they're not going to do that. Like they're not going to target the stadiums of the World Cup. They're not that stupid. right? And so that's kind of the problems that they're running into. I think in the end of the day, they might have conversations, they might have negotiations to try to figure out. But I think from the Mexican political side, it's we just don't want Uncle Sam, so we had to give them El Mencho. It's just again, because we've seen this all the time. Like the best one. There's a New York Times article that talks about General Cienfuegos. He used to be the top Mexican general. Talked about. Read the article. The guy was getting paid by a BLO leader. And then eventually went and killed them because he didn't serve their purpose anymore. Even though he was getting paid, but because he had the power. And that's the Mexican federal government. That's just how it works. So if you find other pressure points and there's something else that they're more concerned about, they're going to act on it. And I think that's what we're saying. So that's why I don't think there's necessarily this aspect of deterrence can necessarily be reestablished. It was shattered with Mitchell. We'll see. Maybe there is something they can do to change that, but they're running the risk that they might create a political movement demanding change because of this, right? And Claudia Sheinbaum is very concerned about this image of insecurity in her own country, right? So there's that aspect. The next couple of days, it's the leadership. It's the leadership of CGG. That's the only thing I care about from now to the next 2 weeks, right? It's who do they appoint as the new successor? And if there's an agreement within that. Because if there's a fracturing, the key question within the fracturing, because we've seen areas, smaller fractures within Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Like Colima had a fracture. Michoacan had a fracture. Doesn't matter. Like, whatever. Like, they'll survive. They can survive. That's not a big deal. But if it's one of these regional leaders, like Sapo, Jardinero, the one I'm really looking at is Jardinero, now we're talking. Okay, now we're talking like Sinaloa cartel civil war type of fracture. If one of those guys pull out, and now we're seeing huge violence and problems, right? So that's the areas that I'm looking at: is what does the new leadership look like? By the way, just there's rumors that El Sapo was killed. One of the guys I mentioned. There was a report in one of the Mexican media. Huge, incredible doubt. I have not heard anything. Like that was a report that was one news organization pushed it. Nobody heard anything because it was funny when El Mencho was killed. I swear to you, I think everybody who has contacts within the Mexican government all got the notification at the same time. Because literally, I got the notification and like a minute later, El Universal broke it. Like a minute after I got the confirmation. Like I think the Mexican government said, send it. And then they sent it to everybody. And so that was kind of the interesting aspect, right? So that's the next thing. And I think for the next 2 weeks, from a cartel perspective, the number one conversation is going to be who is the new leader of El Mencho, and do people agree that he is the new leader, and see how viable is the continuity of operations as the organization for CG&G is in Mexico.
Excellent, as always, man. Folks, be sure to head over. We'll have it in the description below, but Stefano is doing some incredible work on X. Instagram, he's publishing not just his thoughts about what's happening, but also footage that's coming out of Mexico. So follow him there. TikTok, and of course, YouTube. We'll try to get him back here for an update before too long. Stefano, thank you so much, sir, for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Preston. It was fun.
All right, so thank you so much again to Stefano for taking the time to walk through all of that today. Look, anytime something kicks off with cartels, he has media requests like out the door, left, right, and center, nonstop for days. So it means a lot that he took the time to explain exactly what he's seen play out right now. Again, to best stay up to date with what's happening, not just around the current cartel violence and instability in Mexico, but all things cartel related, Stefano's a great follow. Instagram, X, TikTok, and he's starting to post more here on YouTube as well. All of those accounts will be linked in the description below. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
Corre, 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 corre. That's just people having a domestic dispute.
Yeah.
These people aren't drug dealers. These people are criminals and terrorists who happen to make money off of drugs. The idea that they are going to straighten up and fly right if you simply permit their behavior, like they're going to submit an IRS form, is ridiculous. 1 year ago, 1 year ago, President Trump designated cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Now, we've seen that with Venezuela, but he designated specifically Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Why? Because they control governments, right? They're effectively transnational actors, and they can destabilize entire countries, regions, in some cases, halves of continents, and use fear, right, as a terrorist organization would. We saw this on full display yesterday. So first, let's set the stage. Monroe Doctrine, you know this, the Trump administration was very clear that the national security approach, the Western Hemisphere is ours. And thank God. Picture any other country in the Western Hemisphere and tell me you want them at the tiller of the ship. He wrote, the United States will reassert and reinforce the Monroe Doctrine to restore American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere, to protect our homeland and access to key geographies throughout the region. So this is something that is well known. The left, of course, has complained about it.
Yeah.
And that means that anything President Trump does must be bad. So designating foreign drug cartels as terrorist organizations, they also believe it's bad. We saw them do it with Venezuela. Now, Mexico. The president there, Claudia Sheinbaum, has repeatedly rejected, she kind of did, but she doesn't really mean it, our intervention.
Es necesario reafirmar.
It is necessary to reaffirm that in Mexico, the people are in charge and that we are a free, independent, and sovereign country.
Yeah, not the cartels.
Sí.
Cooperation, yes. Subordination and intervention, no. He has insisted on several occasions that the United States military be able to enter Mexico.
En que el ejército de Estados Unidos pueda.
And we have said no very firmly. First, because we defend our sovereignty. And second, because it is not necessary.
Defendemos nuestra soberanía. Y segundo, porque no es necesario.
Yeah, the people are in charge.
Sure.
People are in charge. So, you know,
I've seen.
why would you care if a few drug cartels get taken out? Well, this weekend it turned into a war zone because of just that.
This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, coming at you here live in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Just had the military driving past me, and as I understand it, I should not be around anywhere where the police or the military are, because they are the target right now. I can see the flames underneath that black smoke. Major flames there.
Antema. Corre, 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 corre.
That's just people having a domestic dispute.
Yeah.
No, don't take it out on the $5 rotisserie chickens.
Yeah.
They didn't do nothing.
It's people having a dispute because the
Yeah,
people are in charge of their government.
That's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So let me tell you exactly what happened. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, for future, I'll just say CJNG, their leader, El Mencho, was killed by some Mexican security forces. There wasn't any involvement of the United States outside of shared intel, from what we understand, but also there were numbers that came out that there were some American guardsmen, right?
No, sorry. These are the National Guard of Mexico.
Oh, National Guard of
25
Mexico.
were killed during the
25
just
Mexican.
the internal dispute.
And there were conflicting reports coming out, so we're
Yeah.
still kind of parsing through it, but intel was shared. That's how we helped. Keep in mind, this is the main competitor to Sinaloa cartel.
Yeah.
That's El Chapo, for those of you who don't necessarily follow, if you're not in on the brackets of the drug cartels. And so what is happening is the cartels are now trying to what? Use terrorism. They're trying to retain power over and discourage the government from acting. The people of Mexico are not in charge of their own destiny. It has been for a long time, and you know this, and all of those who are in the know have known this. The drug cartel says jump, and the government says how high. It just depends on which drug cartel has the most power at that point. That's why they have been designated foreign terrorist organizations. By the way, El Mencho's henchmen did not go down, I will give them credit where it's due, without a fight. I always forget how terrible that motion picture was.
Terrible.
So, this isn't just a problem, though, for Mexico. Just like if Canada is communist, it's not just a problem for Canada. If Canada has a porous border, it's not just a problem for Canada, it's a problem for the United States. These cartels are a major threat to the United States. I'm not going to have a libertarian debate about the war on drugs. We live in reality right now, and drug cartels exist, and they do bad things. And if you legalized all drugs tomorrow, they would still exist. They would just do something else. Let me direct you to some facts. Check the references. Here's key fact number one. The CJNG, other cartels, are not just responsible for drugs, so about $100 billion a year. For example, 1 million pills, 77,000 kilograms of drugs were seized by the DEA. But there's also human trafficking, $13 billion a year. Now remember, there were 300,000 children lost under Biden. We don't have the exact numbers to know which ones were directly the result of these cartels. But here's the thing. If you just legalized all drugs, that $13 billion a year in human trafficking would go up. These people aren't drug dealers. These people are criminals and terrorists who happen to make money off of drugs. The idea that they are going to straighten up and fly right if you simply permit their behavior, like they're going to submit an IRS form, is ridiculous. Keep in mind, when you look at, you have a contrast. Former administration, right? Biden, drugs, including fentanyl, skyrocketed. The use, the importation therein, under President Trump, just this second term, fentanyl deaths are down almost 20%. You look at the border, which of course directly involves Mexico. 12 to 20 million completely unvetted illegals. I get it. Some of those are visa overstays. It's hard to get the exact number. Let's round it. Let's give it an even round 15 million. You have gangs taking over entire apartment complexes. Compare that to President Trump. Border crossings down by 95%. Cartel arrests are numbering around 7,000 at this point in time. Key fact number two, there's a reason that these people are considered terrorists. Okay? You saw what they did in Mexico, but they've also been doing this here. So in 2025, Mexican national was charged with terrorism in Texas for providing material to support the CJNG cartel. Grenades, weapons, cash, was arrested in Mexico, extradited to the United States. For some reason, though, even with all of this being said, the left, the same left who says that waving the flag at the Olympics and chanting USA turns them off, you know what else turns them off? Designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. This comes from New York Times, Cato. You guys will have all the references. Brennan Center for Justice wrote, "The dangerous sweep of Trump's plan to designate cartels as terrorist organizations." I'm sure, but you know what I think is more, dangerous? Drug cartels.
Wait, I don't know. I mean, labels are kind of worse.
Labels, man. Cato wrote, "Trump administration shouldn't designate drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations." What? I'm sure they have some bullshit pseudo-libertarian, really a liberal in disguise reason for it, but you know what?
It's because drug cartels are scary.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We don't want to misidentify them.
New York Times wrote, "How labeling cartels terrorists could hurt the U.S. economy." What? I mean, I guess we'd lose $100 billion in drugs per year if that's how you want to. That's how you want to frame it. At what point do we say these people are just anti-American across the board? They hate, they revile the United States of America. The left is not a part of American society. It is no longer, the Democrat Party is no longer a political party. They don't like the flag. They don't like borders. They don't like us being tough on drug cartels. What do we do? Balkanization almost seems okay to me at this point. I think we may be long overdue for a divorce. Wait, if you say, well, why? Aren't we all Americans? Yeah, but you don't like the flag. If I say, America, your stomach turns. If I say, hey, can't we sort of try and clamp down on drug cartels? You go, no, that's not right. That'd be bad for America. And if I say why, you say, like, what do you, what? How do we find common ground at this point? And of course, these same people bitched about President Trump bombing narco-terrorist drug boats.
The Pentagon's announced the U.S. blew up another boat in the Eastern Pacific, killing 4 people, claiming the boat was carrying drugs, but once again offering no proof.
You probably saw news that last week the Trump administration took this airstrike on a boat off the coast of Venezuela. First of all, we have sort of no information on who was on that boat or who was killed. It might be, as the Trump administration says, members of a drug cartel.
Well, that's some information, isn't it?
Civilians. We don't know. His stated reason for taking the strikes to try to stop the flow of drugs in the United States, it makes no sense as the centerpiece of a counter-narcotics
guarantee you those drugs didn't make it.
In many ways, it's bringing the logic of Gaza into the Caribbean in terms of unaccountability.
That man's body
impunity,
generates no pigment.
and an expansive
sexual
notion
aura.
of national defense to justify
Saw him and thought about sex.
what is in
Josh?
effect just extrajudicial killing.
It is about separation of powers. For the folks who wave their Constitution around, read the damn thing.
Okay, I
Who waves
have.
the Constitution around?
I have. What are you trying to say that the Constitution says that we can't designate any foreign terrorist organizations to be terrorist organizations? Like, whenever the left says the Constitution, you know they're lying to you. Just to be clear, whenever someone on the left says, actually, I'm a Christian, but you know they're lying to you. And when we're talking about sinking these boats, like terrorists or no terrorists, it's sink or swim time for Mexico. And if you like me, fam, you know I can't swim. So let's go to tourism.
Yeah, nailed it. They love you.
Just got some new votes.
Yeah.
The traders in Canada, our greatest friends, Canada. Yeah, they're our greatest friends. So we designate a group, foreign terrorist organizations. They take over entire cities in Mexico and show exactly what we told you to be true, that they control governments and that is a threat to the United States. So what does Canada do, our greatest friend? They encourage their people to go to Mexico. Tourism from Canadians to Mexico up 12%, down 28% going to the United States because Canadians believe that it's safer than the United States for them to be in Mexico.
Hope you're enjoying it. Your extended stay.
Here's a post from Jay Hunter on X wrote, last week I had a trip booked to the U.S., canceled that and went to Mexico. If you're looking for a vacation, I suggest Mexico. The love for Canadians is real down there. And your kidneys. Better food, better people, better country.
Papa John's.
And they don't.
Papa Juan.
And they don't have an elderly orange rapist felon as a president.
What?
Okay. So the drug cartels in Mexico are better than President Trump, and they're better specifically for Canadians. All right. And the Mexican tourism minister said that Canadians going to Mexico and said, I think they are choosing more friendly policies. You know what else? This happened when I was growing up. Canada did this with Cuba. You could actually argue that the people of Cuba, because there are consequences, right? Canadians going, we're going to stick it to the United States. I can't believe they beat us at hockey, even though winning doesn't matter, right? It just matters how you live. But we're going to Mexico. They did the same thing with Cuba. The people of Mexico will be under the thumb of the drug cartels as long as Canada does this. That's why countries boycott. Countries, just to be clear. That's why countries have embargoes. That's why countries have sanctions. Cuba, Canadians have almost single-handedly kept the Castros and their never-ending lineage in power afloat with their tourism dollars when the United States said we're no longer allowing our people to go to Cuba. Do you think the people... Let me ask you this. Canadians go, we're going to Cuba. I can get some rum there duty-free. Whatever the hell it is. Why do you think when Cubans get to America, well over 80% of them vote Republican and conservative? Do you think they're happy to see Canadians go there and every dime they spend goes directly to the fascist, autocratic communist regime? What I'm trying to say is just sticking it to America because you have a jealousy complex, it's not annoying. It kills people. It kills people. I know because I was one of them. I had to go to Cuba. I was one of few Americans who went to both Guantanamo Bay to do some shows for the troops as an American. And when I was young, I had to go to Cuba on a Canadian passport for a Rising Crust pizza commercial, which, by the way, pretty sure was a money laundering scheme.
Yeah, I don't see why the Rising Crust is coming out of Cuba.
Yeah, well, they needed it to be set during the summer. They needed to blow their budget. And I remember my mom leaving a tip on a bill. And I was a minor. I think I was 16, and I said, "Mom, if you do that, that's not gonna go to her. That's gonna go." And my mom said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, if I put that, does that go to you?" And she just my mom said, "You know what? Never mind. Let me write that. I'll give you cash." She said, "Don't touch the bill. Don't touch the bill. Don't scratch it. They'll know." Like she was gonna be carried away forever. Canadians support the government of Cuba. Canadians support the government of Mexico in bed with the cartels while they virtue signal, and those people will never enjoy basic freedoms. But you know what? You have the moral high ground, Canada, because you kill 5% of your population with euthanasia. Now, surprise, Canadians are stuck in Mexico.
For all the Edmontonians out there, they were telling us to go over there, but yeah, we all had to run here in Puerto Vallarta.
And by the way, that sucks. If that guy's Canadian, serves you right. Here's what Canadians don't do. Is this right or is this wrong? They can't answer it. It's a godless nation. Ironically, because they still actually have God in their national anthem, which has offended a lot of people. They have no basis to declare what is right and what is wrong. And so, their moral compass is, we don't like America. What will bother America? They can't say that objectively tariffs from the United States on Canadian goods is wrong because they do it. They do it. If they had an objective standard of right and wrong, they would say, well, we've done tariffs, and so they're doing, so you know what, that makes sense. Maybe we should either all do away with tariffs or just sort of accept these terms. Instead, it's, we don't like America, so we should be able to do it, and they shouldn't be allowed to. Canada has not met their NATO spending for decades. Canada wouldn't exist as a country if not for the United States. But instead of saying, is it objectively wrong for us to sign a contract and not honor it, do they have a point? They go, well, we don't like America, they can afford it, so screw them, we're gonna buddy up with China. This is why you're seeing a resurgence in Christian nationalism, because people need to be able to govern themselves with an objective standard of truth, of right and wrong. Canada doesn't have that. That's why they're killing their own people in record numbers. That's why they are allowing men to compete in women's sports and championing it. That's why they use stupid terms like two-spirited. It's why they implement tariffs and bitch when it happens to them. It's why they boo the national anthem, complain when they see a meme, and it's why they give their dollars to oppressive governments that jail political dissidents while convincing themselves that they have the moral high ground. I really mean it. I really, really mean it. The United States should militarily intervene in Canada. Because of this, and a bunch of other reasons that we've covered, they're actually a national security threat. They're actually a national security threat because we don't share any common ground or language as to what is right and what is wrong, and we are not friends. Alberta, I really hope you guys leave. And we're not saying you have to be the 51st state. We'll just have a relationship with you. But I think our relationship with Canada needs to be done with. It's over. It is an immoral, godless, conquered people who only take, they don't give. Can anyone tell me this? How has Canada benefited the world? In any significant measure, they'll say they have a peacekeeping force. Whatever, so do we. It's called the United States military. What have they done? They've had more time than the United States in many ways. You guys may not know this. And they certainly had a leg up because they didn't fight royalty. They bowed to them. Why isn't the rest of the world saying, dear, when an earthquake happens, when a tsunami happens, why aren't they saying, dear God, I hope the Canadians help us? You're selfish pricks, Canada, and you mistreat everyone. We are only as valuable to you as the handouts we give. And I don't think we should be doing that anymore. Hey, if you're still watching this, you may be one of the 6 million or so subscribers on YouTube who is, for one reason or another, I don't understand it, still here. So back in the day, I would say click one of these videos and subscribe, but really just head on over to my channel on Rumble. Follow me there. I'm live 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern, and I actually say the things that I mean to say. On YouTube, it's everyone here is kind of neutered, really, and there's just a general lack of testicular energy, but I mean that in the heterosexual way. Mostly.
All right, everybody, we are live. How's it going? Chuck Holton here, coming to you from Frankfurt today. I'm on my way east to go cover the war that may happen with Iran, and on my way east, something happened to the south of the United States. As of February 23rd today, Mexico is experiencing some widespread violence that's following the killing of Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera Cervantes. He's the leader of the Jalisco New Generation gang. They call it CJNG. And it was a military operation that happened yesterday. Now, the raid was supported by U.S. intelligence, even though there were no U.S. troops on the ground. And so we're going to be breaking down all of that, telling you what's going on as we've seen violence break out all across Mexico. There's a lot to talk about, and I've got some very special treats for you today. I got a short interview with one of our friends who's actually at a resort in Puerto Vallarta and is locked down right now, and he's been sending some incredible stuff. Also, a lot of you have been asking about Oscar Blue Ramirez, wondering if he's okay, and we're actually going to have him on the show. So we'll be talking with Oscar in just a minute. Before we do that, though, I need to tell you about our newest sponsor. And this, you're going to love this one. Well, you just take a listen. Where's my video? Here it is. All right. So Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos all have something in common. I mean, besides all showing up in the same uncomfortable court documents, they're secretly pouring millions into underground bunkers and then stuffing them with gourmet freeze-dried food. I'm not talking about ramen and Vienna sausages here. These are men who own private islands and personal submarines and have more ex-wives than I've got fingers, and they're hoarding a 30-year food supply like the world's worst coupon shoppers. When the guys who built the Matrix start prepping like they know how it ends, maybe the rest of us should take a hint. Now, I don't have a $1 million bunker. I've got a passport and questionable life choices. But I do have a brain, which is why I was happy to get hooked up with freeze-dry wholesalers to get the same high-quality, U.S.-raised, actually delicious freeze-dried food the top 1% are filling their bunkers with, except without the billionaire budget. We're talking grass-fed burgers, ribeye, sirloin steaks, scrambled eggs, pizza, sushi, and yes, Hostess cupcakes, because if civilization collapses, I'm absolutely still having dessert. Over 300 meals, 30-plus year shelf life, sealed in Mylar bags like some kind of beautiful apocalypse time capsule. So stop blowing your prep budget on chalky MREs that taste like cardboard soaked in sadness and bad decisions. When things go sideways, food morale matters. So go to freezedrywholesalers.com/hotzone or click the link in the description and use code HOTZONE for 15% off. The elites are already ready. The only question is whether you are. All right. Thank you very much for our newest sponsor, Freeze Dry Wholesalers. So go check them out. Now, as I said, the raid that took out El Mencho was supported by U.S. intelligence, and it resulted in his death. Now, he didn't die right away. He actually died on a helicopter that was taking him to Mexico City. So he was injured, and several others of his guys were killed in the firefight that ensued around his house. I'm really surprised it wasn't worse than that, to tell you the truth. But that has led to the deaths of at least 25 Mexican National Guard people in subsequent attacks, because it just set Jalisco on fire. And so we're going to see more violence, and we're going to talk to, like I said, Oscar about that. Matter of fact, let's bring Oscar in right now because he's the star of the show here. Oscar, how's it going? It's great to see you.
It's always great to be with you, Chuck. Thank you for the invitation.
You're in Tijuana, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So and there's violence there as well. Matter of fact, I have some video that you sent of what you saw, and so I'm going to put that up while we're talking. But explain what we're seeing here.
Well, it escalated, Chuck. As soon as the execution of this mission, that it was led by the federal government with the intelligence of the American government, the execution of El Mencho in the part of Talapa. After that, there was a wave of violence, started in Puerto Vallarta, resort areas, tourist areas. Then it escalated to the places that you know that they have a lot of control, Guerrero, Michoacan. And then after that, it started escalating to the parts that they have control next to the border. Look at this picture. This automobile was just burned just steps away from the border wall, which tells you how much power they have. And it was surprising
I know right where that is.
Yeah, it was surprising for me in Tijuana because we thought that the Sinaloa cartel was the one that was running the show over here in Tijuana, but it was on the contrast was immediate. You know, that they started showing immediate force. They started burning vehicles in Tijuana in the middle of roads, doing these narco blockades that they were doing specifically and exactly as a copy paste in Michoacan and Guerrero and Puerto Vallarta, showing the power and showing no remorse to the citizens, terrorizing the citizens' security. But more than that, Chuck, when they do this, it is to send a message to the government that we still have power over these communities and that we're not going to show no remorse to go against you. So we still have presence over here. So they started doing that in Tijuana and several communities. Until now, they have more than 22 incidents. They're categorizing them as incidents because they're not only burning vehicles, but they're burning OXXOs. That these are kind of like a 7-Eleven convenience stores also. So they're burning also pharmacies. They're burning all kinds of businesses and automobiles. So you have more than 20 of those that they already have recently happening. On a positive note, they already arrested more than 20 of these individuals that they have committed these crimes over. The government of Baja already released a statement. And just now, there was breaking news. The head of Sedena, that is the Secretary of Defense, just gave out a statement saying that, he was crying on the morning conference of the president because of all the lives that they were lost, military lives that they were lost on this execution of El Mencho. But also he said, one of the most important things to highlight, this is the head of the military. He said, this is a cooperation with the United States. This magnifies in Mexico the level of extraction of information, of intelligence that the United States has, the capability of technology, is like no other in the world. And they do not even have the obligation to go in there. They can just tell Mexico, this is what is happening, this is what's going on, do it. And that's about it. And the way that they handled this operation, Chuck, it was that they knew like the book, The Art of War. You need to study your enemy, their weaknesses, how he's good, when he's eating, and all this kind of stuff. They study El Mencho. What were his weaknesses? And the weaknesses of El Mencho was that he had several women. He visited one of them, consistently. In this one, apparently, they started tap wiring the driver. And then they got in contact with the driver of the women. And that is the way that they got into his location and immediately executed this. It's just amazing the way that the American intelligence works and the way that this all developed. But now it created this wave of violence in several cities, Chuck. And the federal government now needs to control this. Now, the collateral effect has been the citizens, they're extremely concerned. Tourists in Tijuana, we got hundreds of thousands that they cross back and forth. They are extremely concerned also. Tourist areas in Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, they're also extremely concerned for their security. So the federal government already released a statement that they're deploying more authorities to these particular cities and communities so they will feel safe. But schools are closed today. Elementary, junior high school, all levels, colleges are closed. Businesses, yesterday was like a ghost town. Never seen it like this, Chuck. Around 6 o'clock in the evening, Costco was closed. Walmart was closed. All businesses were closed. And they're scared because of the level of repercussions. And then there was a really concerning post on social media. These little posts on social media from these cartel pages. They posted that after 10 o'clock, if people will still be walking outside, they will start shooting at civilians. That was extremely concerning. So, for people, they started safeguarding, calling it like a curfew, went back home. And that's, the situation right now in Tijuana. In other cities, they're exactly almost the same. But where they burn more automobiles, Puerto Vallarta, parts of Jalisco, and then third place, Tijuana, that we have more than 22 incidents, Chuck, until now.
It's amazing. Now, I want to take a look at this video. Let's take this one down. And let's take a video. You were talking about going after civilians. Now, there's a video that came out of them going after one of these OXXO gas stations, and they actually threatened the civilians and told them to leave, and then they left, and then they set the gas station on fire. So I'm going to turn the audio off on that because this is just surveillance video. But you see, this is pretty terrifying. There's the employees, and they look like they're about to kill the person in that car.
Yeah.
And then they told them, get out. No, don't get out. No, stay. Get out of here. Leave. And then they just start hosing down the place with the fuel. And then they start the whole thing on fire. this is happening all across Mexico right now. We're seeing more and more videos like that coming out. As a matter of fact, I got another one here from.
And one thing that I want to say real quick about that video: if you see those people that they're lighting up that gas station, they're young. These are the kind of people that Chuck has mentioned so many times. Incels, he calls them. And these young
Involuntary
kids, they are
celibates.
just in their basement, not doing anything, and they're recruited by the cartel, and then they do this.
Yeah, here's another one where they take over a fuel tanker on the side of the highway, and then they give the guy his keys back and tell him he can go, but then they come and jump in their vehicle and start shooting at him as he's leaving. I think they actually wanted the fuel tanker to blow up on the road, but it didn't, thank God. But so this is the kind of, I mean, this is failed state kind of stuff, Oscar. I just have a question for you. Why do you still live in Mexico? I mean, why have you not moved and become my neighbor in Panama yet?
We're highly thinking about that. You know, we had these multiple conversations, and we're thinking about this year possibly having an enormous possibility to go over there.
Well, you know, just because you're a war correspondent doesn't mean you have to live in the war. Okay, you can live somewhere else. It's okay. We'll let you do that.
You know, now, this to explain a little bit to the audience. This is not the first time that this has happened in Tijuana. It has happened before, and also in Mexico. Last time it was, you know, it was kind of like this. It was a little bit more concerning what the cartel was doing. The Sinaloa cartel at that particular time was stopping people on the highways. They were kidnapping them, hurting them, and then they were burning the vehicles. So this is the reason why a lot of people, when it started happening yesterday, they were extremely concerned. They're like, okay, now we're not going to go outside and drive because possibly they're going to stop us. They're going to hurt us. They're going to get us killed, get a shot. You know, it was really concerning for a lot of the population, and they were a little bit scared.
So what is the President Sheinbaum doing about this? Now, I've seen some reports where she was saying like, oh, it's a human rights abuse to go after these cartel members. And, but you know, now she's kind of crossed the Rubicon where she has gone after the cartel members. What's she saying? And what does this mean for the current government?
Well, she is actually what she just said. It was a mission that it was executed by the federal government with collaboration with the United States intelligence. This basically to the whole population of Mexico, to the media of Mexico, it says to everybody who's calling the shots of taking care of these kind of situations. If it wasn't for the Trump administration and this administration that is currently in the United States of America, you would not have thousands of laboratories that they have been dismantled. You will not have more than 12 companies that they were working illicitly, providing precursors to the Chapo's cartels. You will not have also, you know, more than 20,000 agitators that they have been arrested. You will not have more than 60 plus leaders of cartels that they have been delivered to the United States, more than 50 plus politicians exposed. And now you will not have this, that they just executed a mission for them to kill one of the most wanted terrorists in Mexico. So the statements from her is always going to say, we're the ones that we took care of it. We're the ones that we're doing this because we protect the sovereignty. The populist speech for their political party to say, oh, we're not going to let the gringos come in here and invade our country and take over our country, but we're collaborating with them. They're helping us, you know, because there's their obligation also. That's the populist speech that they're using. But on the other hand, the people that we have common sense and that we have a brain, we know what is actually happening. It is the United States that is conducting these missions and that is actually telling the Mexican government, this is where he's located, take care of him, eliminate this criminal cell, and extract this criminal narco-terrorist.
Yeah, you know, I talked yesterday about the kill chain that the U.S. military uses to to find the bad guys, fix their location, and then finish them. And there's 6 steps to that kill chain. The United States did 1 through 4 in this case. Number 5, which is actually pulling the trigger, Mexico did. And then 6, which is exploit all of the information we can get out of there, it is being done by both the United States and Mexico. So you're right. I mean, the United States had a very serious hand in 5 of the 6 steps of the kill chain in this case. So this leaves a big power vacuum. We just took out the largest narco trafficker in Mexico. And obviously his guys are, we really kicked a hornet's nest there. They're burning down the country. I have a graphic of all the different locations of the different cartels in Mexico. And so I don't know how accurate this is. You can tell me, but Puerto Vallarta is down here. Well, let's pull up a real map and look at that real quick. Puerto Vallarta.
Right there in Jalisco, next to
yeah, it's
right
down here.
Up in where it says Jalisco on the left.
Yeah, there's Jalisco, and Puerto Vallarta is right down here.
No, up.
Right
up.
there it is. There it is. Right
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
Okay, so CJNG. I mean, according to this other map that we looked at here, the Jalisco area is they don't control a large part of. Well, these are just the states, right? But so
Yeah.
how much of Mexico does the CJNG control?
Well, they were growing massively. And one of the states that they were growing and they were having a lot of control was Chiapas. That is the last state that connects to Guatemala because they were in charge of the trafficking of illicit substances coming in from Guatemala. Also, they were controlling the coast in Veracruz by the trafficking of illegal substances through the Gulf of Mexico, or you want to call it the Gulf of America, whatever you want to call it.
Gulf of America.
here, clear for the visual approach, runway 17 left deck, AT plane.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
It was the start of the war between Israel and Iran. Two enemies that had been fighting for years in the shadows.
Iran's retaliation has begun.
Now launching missiles at each other's cities. Within days, the U.S. would join in.
There has been an attack inside Iran.
American stealth bombers and submarines launched a massive coordinated attack targeting...
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel.
The so-called 12-day war marked a dramatic shift in the balance of power in the Middle East, and it was the culmination of decades of escalating conflict.
We're ready to roll.
Leading up to the war and after it began, we sat down with officials, insiders, and experts on all sides.
This film's going to cover a large swath of history.
Yep.
And we've drawn on years of frontlines reporting to trace the roots of the conflict.
It's an amazingly complex story.
From the rise of Iran's powerful regional proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas.
It was a huge threat.
To the diplomatic efforts to contain Iran's nuclear program.
The leaders of Iran must recognize that now's the time for a diplomatic solution.
From the October 7th attacks.
There's an Israel before October 7th, and there is an Israel after October 7th.
To the wars between Israel, Iran, and its proxies ever since.
We will not allow those threats to come to our borders.
Annihilation, extermination. Do I need to give you numbers?
We faced an aggression by Israel and by America, and then we resisted.
And now, the uncertainty gripping the region.
Israel hit Syria's capital with airstrikes.
President Trump said he would absolutely consider bombing Iran again.
We're in new territory now. We're in undiscovered country.
This program contains graphic imagery. Viewer discretion is advised.
When I last stood here, I spoke of the consequences of Iran developing nuclear weapons. Now, time is running out. The more Iran believes that all options are on the table, the less the chance of confrontation.
The roots of last month's bombing go back many years, to a long campaign by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
And this is why I ask you to continue to send an unequivocal message that America will never permit Iran to develop nuclear weapons.
I don't think I had a single meeting with the Prime Minister where he didn't raise his concerns about Iran, and certainly the fact that Iran was pursuing a nuclear program that might enable it to have a nuclear weapon. He was single-mindedly focused on that, and he would never let me forget it, that was his #1 priority.
What was often your response to that?
My response was that the United States largely shared that analysis and that understanding of the Iranian regime. The only question was, how would we deal with it? How would we deal with the most significant and most dangerous threat that Iran could pose, which is if it ever acquired a nuclear weapon, and how to make sure that didn't happen.
Netanyahu had reason to be concerned. Western intelligence services had recently uncovered a dangerous new phase in Iran's nuclear ambitions.
Western leaders in Pittsburgh this week were unhappy, but they weren't surprised.
President Obama and the leaders of France and the United Kingdom revealed what intelligence had shown was that Iran was building an underground enrichment facility at a place called Fordow.
This is not the first time that Iran has concealed information about its nuclear program.
There were a number of clocks ticking. One clock was the rate at which Iran was enriching uranium. Another clock was the rate in which they would complete the enrichment and move underground, at which point it'd be too late.
Iran denied it was building a bomb. and insisted Fordo was for its civilian nuclear power program.
Never Iran was after nuclear bomb.
Hossein Mousavian spent years as an Iranian diplomat and nuclear negotiator. Why would Iran build a nuclear facility in the side of a mountain 80 meters underground if it were only for peaceful purposes? Why do that?
The answer is very, very simple. It is because of the US, because every US president repeatedly said all options are on the table. It means the US may attack Iran. When you threaten a country for military strike, why they should not have their nuclear facilities under the ground? They would be crazy if they would not have done it.
Tough new sanctions are designed to slow Iran's nuclear ambitions. President Obama is expected to sign those penalties into law.
I'm pleased to sign into law the toughest sanctions against Iran ever passed by the United States Congress.
The Obama administration had already imposed crippling sanctions on Iran, and behind the scenes pursued a series of covert cyber operations against its nuclear program.
You know, for them, you're the great Satan, we're the little Satan. For them, we are you, and you are us.
But Netanyahu wanted to go further, a military strike.
The Prime Minister did not believe the Iranian nuclear program could be contained and prevented from producing a nuclear weapon without military action. So for him, it was a matter of when and who and how.
There is strong likelihood Israel will strike Iran in April, May, or June.
In early 2012, the Israeli military was planning for an attack on Iran's nuclear sites. But as the possibility of a strike grew, Netanyahu's own cabinet and intelligence agencies were divided on whether to attack.
The issue was whether right now they're building a bomb and this is the right time to do it.
Zohar Palti, head of Mossad's intelligence directorate, was arguing against it.
You are not coming and starting a war with a huge state like Iran without those discussions. And if somebody is pushing you as a professional, I want to do it, I said, okay, but you have to understand, right now, at that moment, the Iranians are not building a bomb. The head of the Mossad was against it, the chief of staff was against it. And around the table from the professionals, I think that I was the only one who thought that this is the right moment and we should do it.
Yaakov Amadror was Netanyahu's national security advisor.
We are asking ourselves every morning one question. Will tomorrow be too late? If it is not, we don't do anything. If it is, the answer is yes, tomorrow will be too late. We have to decide what we do.
With his cabinet divided, Netanyahu turned to Obama and asked him for assurance that if Israel did go ahead, the U.S. would back them up.
What Netanyahu wants is either a green light or a yellow light to go bomb the Iranian program. And the knowledge that if the Iranians retaliated against Israel, Obama would be right with him to get into that conflict. And Obama wasn't going to give him that. He couldn't imagine how you bomb Iran without triggering a general war in the Middle East.
In the end, Netanyahu stood down. The animosity between Iran and Israel goes back almost 50 years to 1979, when Iranian revolutionaries overthrew a repressive monarchy supported by the U.S. and allied with Israel.
Ayatollah Khomeini, who was the chief ideologue of the Iranian Revolution, had written a lot about Israel in his proclamations, in his writings. He saw Israel as an aggressive outside force which had taken Palestinian territory, exiled Palestinians from their land.
And was part of this actually enshrined in the revolutionary Iranian stance on Israel?
Yes, it was part of the ideology. Eradication of Israel, restoration of land to the Palestinians was an aspiration of all Arabs, all Muslims at that point in time, and it would be the Islamic Revolution that would fulfill that aspiration.
The new Iranian regime was heavily sanctioned by the U.S., which backed Iran's rivals in the region, like Iraq and Saudi Arabia.
Iran is Shia, Iran is Persian-speaking, the Arab world's consciousness is Sunni, it's Arabic-speaking. Iran in the region is an absolute loner.
Iran would bolster its standing in the region through its support of the Palestinian cause.
No other issue gives Iran a role, a say in the Arab world, right? No other issue speaks to Arab hearts and minds than Iran's support for the Palestinians.
The devastation in the west of the city is appalling.
Initially, Iran backed Yasser Arafat's Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, which was engaged in an armed struggle against Israel from its base in Lebanon. In 1982, Israel invaded and occupied southern Lebanon to drive out the PLO. Iran went on to train and fund a Lebanese Shia group to fight against Israel. It would become known as Hezbollah, Arabic for the Party of God.
120 Americans killed today.
Soon after, a massive suicide bombing at a U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut would be widely attributed to Hezbollah, acting as a proxy for Iran.
It left really, really bitter taste in American mouths. It really hardened America's views on Iran.
These deeds make so evident the bestial nature of those who would assume power if they could have their way and drive us out of that area.
But it also taught the Iranians that there was a strategy here, that you could actually extricate the West by using, call it terrorism, call it asymmetric behavior, etc.
A huge explosion, apparently caused by a bomb, shattered the Israeli embassy in Argentina today.
Then Hezbollah units, or those militias Iran was training, started suicide bombing against Israeli targets.
We shall look for the people who are responsible for this terrible crime.
By the 1990s, Israeli intelligence was growing increasingly concerned that Iran was escalating and trying to develop a nuclear bomb, a red line for Israel, the only nuclear power in the Middle East.
There's already very deep animosity between Iran and Israel, and it's a very ideological animosity from Iran's perspective. So if we do the 1 + 1 + 1, we understand that there is a nuclear weapon being developed to be put on a missile that is probably destined to end up in Israel.
Netanyahu began calling for international action against Iran.
The most dangerous of these regimes is Iran. If this regime or its despotic neighbor, Iraq, were to acquire nuclear weapons, this could presage catastrophic consequences, not only for my country and not only for the Middle East, but for all of mankind.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has been after bombing Iran from early 1990s. He doesn't care about enrichment or nuclear bomb or even nuclear program. He just wants to drag the US in a war with Iran. That's it.
Throughout this time, Iran's proxy strategy was evolving.
Today, we are preparing a whole new generation which will fight the state of Israel in the future.
With Arafat and the PLO negotiating the historic Oslo peace accords with Israel, Iran began backing a new, more extreme Palestinian group, Hamas.
The car bomb was aimed at killing the maximum number of Israeli schoolchildren. Militants belonging to the Islamic group Hamas said they carried out the attack.
When the Oslo Agreement is signed, most Palestinians said, let's give this a chance. But there was that core constituency among Palestinians who said, the peace process is a sham, it can never succeed, only armed struggle can liberate Palestine, and Hamas became the embodiment of that sentiment.
Hamas's founding declaration called for the destruction of Israel, and it violently opposed a two-state solution.
In these decades of the 1990s, there's only one country, and since then, Effectively, there has been only one country that continues to arm militias against Israel, that continues to not accept the two-state solution, and that is the Islamic Republic of Iran.
In 2003, after the U.S. invasion of Iraq, Iran seized the chance to expand its regional influence even farther.
This starts supporting, arming, funding, and in fact cultivating militias and political groups in countries around the region, and it defines that as part of what becomes known in the security lingo of Iran as forward defense. The idea is that we will fight in Lebanon, we will fight in Syria, we will fight in Palestine, so that we don't have to fight in Iran.
In time, this network of militias would become known as the Axis of Resistance, from the Houthis opposing Saudi influence in Yemen to Shia fighters in Iraq. The Iranian government denies the groups act as proxies, insisting they are independent organizations all fighting against Israel, which to this day it says is an illegitimate state occupying Palestinian land.
We have supported, the Palestinian people in their struggle to end the occupation in Palestine.
Majid Takhtravanchi is Iran's deputy foreign minister. Iran has supported, with both training and military support and money, certain regional actors. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. The Israelis and the Americans describe this strategy as building an axis of resistance. They see it as an offensive strategy.
The axis of resistance, you mentioned the axis of resistance. Axis of resistance against whom? Against the occupation. The Israelis and the Americans have been, floating this idea that the axis of resistance is against America or against Israel. They do not say the fact that the axis of resistance was in response to occupation, in response to more than 70 years of Israeli occupation of Palestine. If they want to see an end to resistance, they should end the occupation, pure and simple.
The Iranian objective, and it was not only propaganda, was to remove the great Satan, which is the United States, from the Middle East, and to wipe Israel off the map. So death to America, death to Israel.
Amos Yadlin was the head of Israeli military intelligence in the years the proxy network was expanding.
And basically, as chief of intelligence, I saw three main efforts. One is the proxy, supporting Hezbollah, supporting the Palestinian terrorists, the Houthis, the Assad regime, the Shia militia in Iraq. Second, ballistic missiles. And then the nuclear.
Now, the professor was killed by a remote-controlled bomb.
Israel began engaging in a shadow war of its own.
Two of Iran's top nuclear scientists were targeted by hit squads
against Iran's nuclear program.
Two men on a motorcycle stuck a magnetic bomb to the door, then detonated it as they pulled away.
If there is someone who is very important in the process, and without him it will be delayed for a while, he will be eliminated.
Cyber attacks, assassinations.
Cyber attacks, assassinations, blowing some tools inside the system. Agents which are going in and putting explosives here and there. It was understood it cannot destroy but it can delay it. And when you buy time in the Middle East, you buy everything.
The leaders of Iran must recognize that now's the time for a diplomatic solution, because a coalition stands united in demanding that they meet their obligations, and we will do what is necessary to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon.
By 2013, having refused to support an Israeli military strike on Iran the year before, President Obama was now pursuing his own strategy. He wanted to negotiate.
When we set up the early stages of the negotiations, it was very secret. It was a very small group. I was chief of staff to the president at the time. There were half a dozen people who knew that the conversation was going on.
Israel was not included in the talks. It found out through its own intelligence.
It was a type of an implosion. We're confronted with this reality in which our principal ally has negotiated behind our backs for 7 months with our worst enemy. Now that is hard to square.
And when it learned about this, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu was furious. He sees this highly sensitive, secretive intelligence coming from Tehran. The Iranians are happy. The American delegates are making concession after concession. And it leads, I think, naturally to harshen the line against the US government and say, this is a very bad deal. You are going to make a very bad deal.
This is a bad deal. A very, very bad deal. It's the deal of the century for Iran. It's a very dangerous and bad deal for peace in the international community.
President Obama is going to speak today at 7 a.m. on the Iranian deal. We will speak.
Today, after 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not. A comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
In the summer of 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA for short, was signed by the US, Iran, and 5 other countries over Israel's furious objections.
What a stunning, historic mistake.
It restricted Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for lifting economic sanctions and put in place intensive monitoring by international inspectors.
The objective of the agreement inside the Obama White House was to make sure that the Iranians always were at least a year away from being able to produce a weapon, on the theory that if they ran for it, we'd see them and there would be political time to react.
It cuts off all of Iran's pathways to a bomb.
There were problems with this agreement. The provisions expired too early. The Iranians demanded that they get dwindled down over time. By 2025, as we speak today, they were supposed to be allowed to produce more and more uranium. By 2030, the agreement would end.
At some point, the question is, if you want to stop something as significant as Iran getting a nuclear weapon, is that a worthy objective? Are you better off with no deal or the best deal you can get? We thought, and I continue to believe, that the best deal you can get was something that left the United States, Israel, and the world safer.
I mean, to those who would say that a deal was better than no deal, how do you respond to that?
Always deal is better than a war, but it should be a good deal. That wasn't a good deal.
The Israelis were upset that the deal also gave Iran access to billions of dollars by unfreezing its bank accounts and allowing it to sell oil. Money, they said, would embolden the regime and its proxies.
The notion that Iran got the money as a result of sanctions relief and spent on certain groups or certain parties in the Middle East, that is far from the truth. In fact, we spent lots of money that we received from the sanctions relief on our economy. JCPOA was welcomed not only in Iran, but by the whole international community as a success story of diplomacy.
In spite of Iran's denials, the so-called axis of resistance grew in the wake of the deal. At the center of the axis was Iran's most powerful military strategist, General Qasem Soleimani.
Qasem Soleimani was a truly irreplaceable guy. He did something that is actually rare in modern history. He was able to build a multinational army of tens of thousands of people, of Afghans, of Syrians, of Iraqis, of Palestinians, who would all fight under the command of Iran. This is not something that you learn in military school. It's not something that you learn from a book. It was something that Soleimani had been able to bring about through years of experience.
The most formidable force of all was Hezbollah in Lebanon. It came to be considered the best armed non-state actor in the world.
Militarily speaking, Hezbollah is a bigger threat. It has a lot more fighters, more advanced capabilities than other proxies. But it is more, I'd say, controlled by Iran and also more deterred by Israel. Hamas is a different kind of proxy. Hamas is more independent. It's a Palestinian resistance organization in terroristic means, but it has its own ethos and is more independent in its decisions. It is accepting funding and training and equipment from Iran because Iran is willing to support it, but they have their own motivations and their own decision-making.
Palestinians will vote for a new parliament, and the results could have a major impact on relations with Israel and matters of war and peace.
By now, Hamas was a political force as well as a military one.
The sweeping victory by Hamas is being described as a political earthquake.
In 2006, it had swept national elections and then seized control of Gaza in a civil war.
Hamas has done a lot of damage to our prospects, including the coup d'etat they done in Gaza, and that did really undermine Palestinian national unity and Palestinian international standing, of course.
Hamas gunmen seized control of the rival Fatah government and security offices.
The Palestinian Authority, heir to Arafat's PLO, and longtime participants in the peace process with Israel, retreated to the West Bank.
Gaza becomes a fortress for an organization whose founding charter talks about killing Jews and eliminating Israel, and they are now not just a terrorist organization in Gaza, but the governing organization in Gaza. And that means that the Israelis have to figure out how to deal with them.
The Erez crossing point between Gaza and Israel is now barred to almost all Palestinians.
The Israeli government imposed a blockade on Gaza. It said it was trying to stop Hamas from bringing in weapons and prevent its fighters from crossing into Israel.
The civilian population are facing increasing desperation and misery.
But it also trapped the population.
Israel says that Gazans will not starve on a more basic diet.
The notion that you could keep 2 million people locked up indefinitely with no real economy, who are entirely dependent on Israel opening and closing the border to allow movement of goods and people in, where majority of the people are now impoverished, I think was not only absurd, but also quite cruel.
Hamas, with support from Iran, fired rockets and mortars into Israel. Israel launched airstrikes on Gaza.
I don't suggest that the number of casualties be the determinant of what is proportionate and who's in the right.
Benjamin Netanyahu used the violence to amplify his long-standing concerns about prospects for a Palestinian state.
Netanyahu believes that if you have a Palestinian state in anywhere approximating the 67 borders, the potential for peace is zero, that the capacity for Israel to maintain its security, even in the state it's in now, will be radically diminished, that Hezbollah to its north will be stronger, the problem of Gaza will not be in any way remotely solved. Syria, Iran, shall I go on?
Rockets are still being fired into southern Israel.
But Netanyahu also thought the threats on Israel's borders could be contained without engaging in all-out wars.
The whole building demolished. A member of Hamas lived there, but had left the day before with his family.
For years, most notably in Gaza, he would pursue a fateful strategy known as mowing the grass.
So the idea was, from time to time, there will be a round of hostilities. Hamas will be beaten hard. This will establish deterrence. Let's keep them on a very low level of capabilities.
This notion that every so often there would need to be predictable rounds of violence, mowing the grass, as Israelis call it, only to result in reinstating the status quo that existed before the violence, was an untenable situation.
The philosophy was that Israel doesn't want to go to a big war. Most of the decision makers in Israel, with uniform and without uniform, thought that to go to war is a mistake. I thought that the mistake is not to initiate a war. And that was the biggest mistake. We allowed Hamas and Hezbollah to be very strong organizations. After the 7th of October, it was understood by the establishment in Israel that we made a huge mistake allowing the beast to grow close to Israel.
Thank you.
The volatile dynamic in the region would begin to shift with the rise of a new American president.
I speak to you today as a lifelong supporter and true friend of Israel. My #1 priority is to dismantle the disastrous deal with Iran.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet with President Trump today.
That was welcome news to Benjamin Netanyahu, who was one of the first world leaders to meet with Trump at the White House.
Mr. Netanyahu says he's looking forward to a stronger alliance between the U.S. and Israel.
Netanyahu arrived with a plan to create a unified front against Iran, a vision for a new Middle East, where Israel made peace deals with its Arab neighbors.
Netanyahu felt very strongly that that's something we should pursue.
We can seize an historic opportunity.
And I would say, pushed it pretty hard.
And I believe that under your leadership, this change in our region creates an unprecedented opportunity to strengthen security and advance peace.
It was a radical idea that challenged decades of conventional wisdom about the Middle East.
The dogma was basically there'll be no peace between Israel and its Arab neighbors unless and until you solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
And I believe that the great opportunity for peace comes from a regional approach, from involving our newfound Arab partners.
Trump liked the idea, and on his first trip overseas, courted Iran's rivals in the Gulf.
Until the Iranian regime is willing to be a partner for peace, all nations of conscience must work together to isolate Iran, deny it, funding for terrorism, cannot do it, and pray for the day when the Iranian people have the just and righteous government they so richly deserve.
He had a receptive audience.
We focused on the Iranian threat, which our Gulf partners felt very acutely. They had viewed the Iran nuclear deal as a betrayal. And the president comes in and says, we're going to stand up to Iran together. We're going to counter Iran together. We're going to get out of the Iran nuclear deal. And this is what our Arab partners and Israel were waiting to hear after 8 years of the Obama administration.
President Trump is reviewing whether the U.S. should stay in the Iran nuclear deal or cancel it.
President Trump's efforts to get out of the deal would get a boost from an Israeli intelligence operation inside Iran.
It was about 2 years in the making by the Mossad until the night of January 31st, 2018.
This heist was like the most brilliant, movie-worthy operation. There's this warehouse in a nondescript part of Tehran. The Israelis figure out that it houses the entire nuclear archive, and they do a raid on it. They ship this stuff out when they figured the Iranians wouldn't be looking. Then they begin pouring through it.
I was leading the team that analyzed the findings of the nuclear archives once it arrived, providing us with a comprehensive understanding of Iran's past nuclear weapons activities.
Iran lied. Big time.
Netanyahu seized on it.
This is where they kept the atomic archives, right here. Now, from the outside, this was an innocent-looking compound. It looks like a dilapidated warehouse. But from the inside, it contained Iran's secret atomic archives locked in massive files.
The idea behind the press conference was that we have this amazingly important information to tell the world about Iran.
55,000 pages another 55,000 files.
What was the bottom line? Prior to 2003, there was an active bomb project. After 2003, not so much.
Incriminating blueprints.
It left you with very little doubt that the Iranians were trying to deceive the inspectors about past nuclear activity. But that didn't tell you very much about the present day.
Again, you don't have to read Farsi to understand this. This is U-235, that's enriched uranium.
Netanyahu spun this very skillfully to say to the inspectors, the Iranians are pulling your chain.
Was there any evidence in this trove of documents that the Israelis obtained in Tehran that the Iranians were out of compliance with the nuclear deal that Obama had struck with them?
Well, Iran was in technical compliance with the deal. But if the Iranian regime was serious about its nuclear program being peaceful, then what are they doing keeping a warehouse full of tens of thousands of pages on how to build a nuclear weapon and not disclosing it to the Obama administration?
Iran continues to lie.
The Iranian government called Netanyahu's press conference childish and ridiculous.
135.
We never wanted to produce a bomb?
No call
Yes, you do.
sign. 31,475 feet.
And claimed that the documents were fake.
The nuclear deal.
With all due respect, sir, what was the purpose, what was the reason Iran would have a warehouse in Tehran in which there were documents about how to build a bomb?
No, I cannot, concur with the news that that warehouse was full of, documents related to so-called Iranian nuclear weapon program. The Israelis needed to create certain documents so that they could persuade President Trump in terms of leaving the JCPOA.
The most important value of the press conference was a way of giving more ammunition, adding fuel to fire to say that this was an awful deal.
The nuclear deal gives Iran a clear path to an atomic arsenal.
In that press conference, Prime Minister Netanyahu's most important audience was President Trump.
President Trump will make his decision on what to do with the nuclear deal. I'm sure he'll do the right thing.
It happened a week after the press conference.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
He'd go on to impose severe sanctions and boast about it on Twitter.
After we got out of the deal, we reimposed economic sanctions. Trump called it maximum pressure.
What was the strategy of maximum pressure? What was the actual aim of it?
If you put enough pressure on Iran economically, the hope was, at least my hope was, the people would rise and say, we're not going to put up with this anymore. You spent billions of dollars on nuclear weapons, on supporting terrorist groups. People of Iran have not benefited at all, and we're done with it.
America will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail.
President Trump made a very big mistake. He destroyed the mutual trust, mutual confidence, backing of the negotiations or endeavors, not only Iranian endeavors, but also all of the international community. Because after the JCPOA, all of the international community welcomed it. And President Trump destroyed all of these achievements in international arena.
Inside Iran, Trump's move emboldened hardliners in the government and military.
I think what the Revolutionary Guard took away from Trump coming out of the deal was that their belief that the United States never intended to make peace with Iran was validated. So the wing of the regime that argued that the only way to back the United States off is by being aggressive had won, and they became empowered. And that would continue all the way to eventually the Israel-Iran war.
From Iran's president, an ominous threat. Hassan Rouhani delivered an almost instantaneous response.
Tehran warns it may restart its uranium enrichment program on a, quote, industrial scale.
No longer constrained by Obama's deal, Iran would start increasing its uranium enrichment.
When the U.S. withdrew, I wrote and I said many times that more sanctions and pressures using the Iranian nuclear issue would lead to more enrichment, and Iran will increase the capacity and the level of enrichment to show to the U.S. that they are not going to capitulate under pressure and they will resist.
ما الان بالای تقریبا داریم به 6 کیلو میرسیم. 5.5 فکر می‌کنم حجم غنی‌سازی اورانیوم.
After we left the Iran nuclear deal, it wasn't a surprise that Iran started increasing its enrichment levels. We expected that to happen. But we thought that that illustrated the problem. What does it say about the Iran nuclear deal that Iran is able to restart it so quickly and to increase its enrichment levels to such a degree?
During the first Trump term, Iran's nuclear capabilities continue, if not accelerate. The proxies grow stronger. So what was the net effect of maximum pressure during the first Trump term?
I don't think we applied maximum pressure. I think it's great rhetoric, but it didn't really work. We had to do more. We should have done more to undermine the regime in Iran.
Iran's top general, Qasem Soleimani, taunted Trump.
We had a clash of personalities. The bombastic Soleimani with his global fame, certainly regional fame, and President Trump. His favorite word is the tough guy. They start posting memes about each other, Games of Thrones memes, and Soleimani starts giving speeches. He calls him Trump the gambler.
E6 has been detected. No call sign, alt unknown.
And he used this phrase that's kind of a bit of a cheesy line. It's almost like a B movie in Hollywood, but the Iranian military leaders love to repeat it, which is, you started this war, we will finish it.
این جنگ را شما شروع میکنید اما پایانش را ما ترسیم میکنیم.
The heated words turned into action.
U.S. intelligence indicates the unprecedented attack on Saudi oil fields originated from Iran.
Iran and its network of militias launched a wave of attacks in the region.
And this intelligence over recent weeks had led them to believe that Iran or its proxies may have had a
Soleimani was also stepping up his support for Hamas.
Soleimani used money, guns, effectively an unlimited blank check, giving them suitcases full of cash, giving them advanced military equipment, not just any military equipment, logistical, military trainings, which at the time didn't all look to be relevant. Some of these trainings included attacks from the sea. They included paraglider attacks, tactics that were later used in October 7, 2023.
The Trump administration was growing increasingly concerned about Soleimani.
He was a threat. He was a threat to us, and he was a threat to U.S. citizens across the region. And that threat rose as we went into the final months of 2019.
There came a time when the intelligence was fairly clear that General Soleimani was plotting a mass casualty attack against American troops in the Middle East. President Trump's National Security Cabinet concluded that the risks of not taking action outweighed the risks of taking action.
Iran's military commander, General Qasem Soleimani.
Qasem Soleimani killed in a U.S. drone strike outside of Baghdad's international airport.
Missiles from the U.S. drone hit their convoy as it left the airport.
We elected ultimately to strike him in Baghdad because we could strike him there with minimal collateral damage, which was always of concern to us.
Last night, at my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world, Qasem Soleimani.
I was the officer responsible for it. It was a CENTCOM-controlled operation using Special Operations Task Force.
Some of the reaction pouring in today, big threats towards the United States from senior Iranian officials, including Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, who called all of this a heinous crime committed by the United States.
We won that round. We took a major asset off the table, an asset that the Iranians miss to this day as you and I speak. And it has affected their planning in every way that you can affect a nation's planning.
In the wake of Soleimani's death, the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, was widely viewed as the most powerful figure in the Axis.
وإن أقصى ما يمكن أن نتطلع إليه هو أن نقتل في سبيل الله عز وجل.
Nasrallah sees this as a alliance or network of like-minded groups who would basically create an arc of fire around Israel. So you have Hezbollah, something in the West Bank, maybe down the road in Jordan, Hamas in Gaza, and then you have Iranian militia presence in Syria. You have these militias in Iraq. You have Houthis that are being armed to the teeth with long-range missiles, who also were being trained and mentored by Nasrallah and Hezbollah.
But as Iran and its proxies were strengthening their arc of fire,
at the White House today, Israel and two Arab nations signed a
Israel was making alliances of its own.
normalize relations and bring them closer together.
Trump and Netanyahu's vision for the region was becoming a reality. Two Arab countries, the UAE and Bahrain, announced they would normalize relations with Israel in what was known as the Abraham Accords.
After decades of division and conflict, we mark the dawn of a new Middle East. Thanks to the great courage of the leaders of these three countries.
This day is a pivot of history. It heralds a new dawn of peace.
The interest of the Gulf countries to come to the Abraham Accords is very much connected with Iran's influence in the region. They feel threatened by Iran. They want security assurances from the United States. They see how Israel is a gateway to the American public and to the American administration. And they are being pressured by the influence of Iran and by the way that Iran is sometimes attacking. And now they understand that they might need this alliance with Israel.
It was the first peace treaty between Israel and any Arab country in almost 30 years.
They're doing all this without any real movement on the Palestinian issue. For Netanyahu, this was the crown jewel of his legacy to a certain degree.
Left out, the Palestinians, abandoned by their Arab neighbors, powerless to do anything but protest.
It was primarily a confirmation to us that Israel is truly not interested in peace. That the only agenda is to completely undermine, avoid, bypass the issue, which is the issue of Palestine, by almost working, that is Netanyahu, like a magician, abracadabra. Here you go, you see, I'm normalizing and I'm opening new relations, I'm going all over the Middle East and the Arab world without having to resolve the issue, which is the Palestinian issue.
در پایان عرض بکنم